Sky News Real Estate. Smart investing.
Hello and welcome to Smart Investing. I'm Chris Gray. On tonight's show, how can property investors get more money back in tax this financial year without actually spending any more money? How have these latest tax benefits changed, and does it make a difference if you buy brand new or second-hand property? And why is the real estate industry about to have a massive shake-up, and what will it look like soon? Well, joining us tonight is Brad Beer from BMT Tax Depreciation and Charles Tarbey, Chairman and owner of Century 21 Australasia. Now, Brad, this is always the highest rating show that I ever have at this financial year, and we're talking about something exciting called tax depreciation. Now, it may sound like a stupid question on the highest rated show, but there's a lot of people that don't even know what tax depreciation is, do they? And they're missing out on money. Free money. And there's not often free money around, is there?
No, and that's maybe why it's so high rating. It's free money, right? Look, very simple. Depreciation, people understand depreciation with their car because they buy it, they drive it out, and obviously it becomes worth less money over time. If you use that car for business, you get to make a deduction for that. And if you've got an investment property, it's kind of similar. Your bricks and mortar, your carpets, your hot water service, things inside that property wear out over time like a car or decline in value. The tax office allows us to make a deduction for that loss in value or decline in value. What it means is a bit more cash for investors and some free money because it's a non-cash tax deduction. You don't pay for it like you do all these other expenses in relation to a property. It's just your stuff wearing out. So you get to make some deductions and get some more cash back.
Now, Charles, I've just thought of another reason that quite often we have a separate debate about whether people should manage their own properties or manage it through a property manager. Again, is if you're insular, you don't know any other property investors, you're just looking after your own properties, you'd never hear of these other things, whereas that's got to be another advantage of going to a property manager because they're bound to have updates and make sure you're claiming everything you know.
They do, and we have a strong working relationship with Brad, have had for years, and I particularly like this show this time of the year.
Well, I'm glad because you're a star of it as well, Charles.
But this time of the year because it's the only time that I get to be the same height as Brad as we're sitting down. A lot of people don't know.
Brad is about 8 foot tall.
I'm 5'4" and he's nearly 7 feet. And you can see more of my shoulders than you can of his right now. We'll have to squat him down so low. We have a strong working relationship with Brad and have done for, I guess, 15 plus years. And we're always informing our investors because Brad and his team are always informing us. So you're right, if you're not in that loop, you do miss out. And it's in Brad's interest to let us know, and therefore in our interest to help our landlords save money where they can.
So, all working together. So, Brad, what's, I guess, some of the common items that people can depreciate, and maybe what are some of the unusual ones that they may not even think of?
Look, people and even something done with the accountant will get things like, carpet or hot water service and blinds, but there's some other unusual things like garden sheds. Your garden shed is an item that you can claim some deductions for. There's this whole claim against the structure of the building that people sometimes don't understand, but your spa pumps, your pool pumps and mechanical door closers. We go through, we find a lot of things that you could otherwise maybe miss and make sure we get all of those, put some values on them and get some deductions for them.
Now, Charles, how many agents, when it comes to selling property, I know they do it on brand new property, but second-hand, how many agents are actually that in the know that they might use that as a selling point on a newly renovated property?
It's not an area of education that is often expressed to the industry on a regular basis, and there are certain properties that go beyond an age limit. And a lot of people don't realise there are certain properties you can claim on. So they only think it's new because they buy something new. But how many years can you go back? I mean, you can go back a significant amount.
Well, what I'd usually try to say is, let's just keep it simple. Now, the age does impact on how much deductions you get based on a whole bunch of different factors, but it's not only the age. There's actually a whole bunch of factors on what's been spent on renovations, what someone's done to the property and some of these changes that have come about. But the simple fact is we can get an idea easily through an estimate of how much deduction is available to a potential owner of an investment property without without actually worrying about the age. So I say the more important question is obviously, new gets more slightly, near new gets a fair bit. Don't worry about the age. Ask the specialist the question to see if there's going to be some deductions there, and we don't do it unless there is.
What I was going to say was that you've probably had over many years people saying, "Oh, I didn't realise I could depreciate that property."
And that has been probably the most common thing. We say, we come to tax time, you have the high rating show. And the fact is that I'm 20 years at BMT and I still, after all the education through the real estate industry into property investors, every day have these, oh, what is that about? I didn't think I could claim on that. So and old property is one of those things that definitely there's some deductions there. It's just, you've got to ask the question.
And you've still got a full head of hair. You haven't torn your hair out after 20 years of trying to deal with these people.
No.
Now, last year the government changed the rules, or there's a lot of talk about them changing the rules, and then they did. Do you want to tell the viewers exactly what has changed and what you can deduct now?
Yeah, look, last year at federal budget they brought out a change to the way some things are claimed, and what that is, depreciation's got a couple of areas, and one of those is called plant and equipment, which is like your carpets and hot water services and stoves and blinds. Those things now in a second-hand property, if you bought after that date or exchanged contracts after the 9th of May, which was the federal budget last year, you can no longer claim deduction against those things. So you still get to claim on the structure of the building, and if it's new you get to claim, but they knocked out claims on those second-hand items.
Now, Charles, a lot of people might go to their real estate agent for advice, or maybe their accountant, but when it comes to this technical stuff, especially around tax, they need to be referred back to a specialist, don't they?
Well, they have to, and we obviously as an industry can't give that kind of advice, financial advice, or we certainly shouldn't be, unless we're licensed to do so. And just like this show, we're not offering financial advice, we're just offering opinions, and we've got to be very careful. I think an agent needs to offer an opinion only and should refer their clients to a specialist like Brad. As I said, Brad's been there for 20 years. When people weren't even thinking about depreciation, Brad was there doing this, and I've known Brad since he married Sarah, and along came Isaac and Lucy and Emily, is that right? Yes. So in all that time, you know, this guy's been doing that, and people are today only just discovering depreciation.
So if you and I say something, they shouldn't be suing us, they should be suing Brad.
They
Is
should
that
be
what you're trying to say?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think there's a disclaimer at the end of the show anyway that they probably shouldn't even sue you. So who are the main people that are affected by these changes?
Look, buyers of a second-hand residential property after that date are the only ones that are affected. Now, the claims on the building make up a big percentage of the deductions anyway. So the average deductions have dropped slightly out of properties that we look at that are after that budget, but anyone who's bought after that budget night or exchanged contracts after that budget night is potentially affected by those changes.
And what about brand new properties?
Brand new properties, no change. The rules on brand new properties and commercial properties and some other things haven't changed. So if you buy a new property, you do just exactly what you did in the past.
And that's where a lot of brand new properties are sold, aren't they, especially at the investment range?
Well, they keep driving investment on new properties because the obvious end result of that is they're driving the building industry, whether it's better government benefits for first-home buyers, everything's to do with first home or new properties, so that industry can continue to move forward. And I think that's why they haven't changed it and associated with that.
Look, I think the new property always got the most of the deductions because it was new, just like a new car depreciates more than a second-hand one.
Isn't that the talk on negative gearing with Labor Party? Is that the same thing?
And yeah, the talk about the potential changes, yes.
If there was changes, they wouldn't touch the new properties.
And I guess stimulating into investment into new property is what they want to continue to do. And you know, new property always got the most of deduction. Now a second-hand one, if it's 1 year old, instead of being, you know, just slightly below, it's a bit further below in the deductions in the early years. Most of the deductions are made up of what's about 85 to 90% of deductions that come out of the structure of the building over 40 years. So a lot of the deductions are still there over time.
Now, Brad keeps talking about this 40 years of buildings being depreciated, and so I thought I'd go back 40 years and see what books were on the market then. And I managed to come up with this one that looks very like Charles Tarbey, and it says, "Never lose a listing again," with a young, very handsome Charles Tarbey.
You need to focus on that hairdo. You need to focus on the hairdo.
It is a beautiful hairdo.
I mean, that was modern in those days, and it's real. It might look like a wig to some, but it was real. And I've got to get my hair cut every 3 weeks, unlike some people I know.
Because, I do mine every week, Charles, unfortunately.
Because most of my team have gone bald, and most of my friends, and I don't want to embarrass them, so I get a cut every 3 weeks.
You're a good man, Charles.
Thank you.
Let's change the subject and talk about the auction clearance rate.
Very interesting. Actually went up a little bit this week from the week before, so they were 58.7% from a national clearance rate this time last week. was 66.5%. So it's close. It has been a substantial gap in some areas, but that's not too bad. And Sydney came in at a reasonable rate, 55.3, and they did 635 auctions. And Melbourne came in at 62.3, and they had 946 auctions. So I think that's a good figure. Mind you, it was higher this time last year. The only capital cities that performed better than this time last year were Brisbane and Perth. Now, Adelaide's been at the top of the tree for a while, and last year Adelaide's clearance rate was 68.5%. This weekend just gone was 68%. So again, a really strong performing capital city is probably Adelaide, would be the best out of all of them.
Okay, it's always good to mention the other states around town. Homes advertised for sale.
Well, they always tell me I don't talk about
I know.
You know.
We try and include everyone if we can.
Yeah. Homes advertised for sale for the first time in a great many number of weeks had a slight climb of 0.4%. But what's important to note, and I heard a real estate, I don't know what to call him actually, but he's recognised as a property or industry guru, but he's not a real estate, never been one.
So it's not Tom Panos?
Oh no, Tom's a guru in many areas, and I won't tell you what guru stands for in Spanish, but the number of properties on the market over this time last year is actually up 7.87%. And I heard this commentator saying that they were lower. No way, we're up, and that significant climb in a number of properties for sale over this time last year is an indication of that stabilising market which we've talked about, that steady decline which is now starting to plateau out, I think, towards the end of the year.
Wonderful. And then we'll move on to rent price movements.
Yeah, the rent price movement's an interesting one as well. It's negative this week over last week, 0.69%. But when I keep tracking back to where it is today compared to this time 3 years ago, I'm trying to watch it because that's when the climb started. And for most capital cities. Now, Hobart's getting a decline. It's starting to get that. It was 25.55% up in January this time, but now it's 23.35%, so it's declining. Sydney is only around 4%. The ones that we're still watching closely are Perth, which was negative 19%, and Darwin, negative 15%. So as they start to come back, that's a good thing, because they were up over 20% a few weeks ago. So their rents are getting better.
Wonderful. Good news over there. And finally, the vacancy rates.
Yeah, very simple. Perth, Perth 8.92%, Sydney 3.06%. And the wonderful Melbourne is 0.54%, which is doing very well. 4.17% is the average clearance rate for those three capital cities.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Charles, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back soon.
You're watching Sky News Real Estate. Smart investing.